that Christ is already gone back, to the time that we're talking about, this particular time that Christ prophesied to them to wait, that he was going to send them the Holy Spirit. There used to be, it's a melting city, a melting pot, like America, where people from every nation are represented. And he said they gather, but they could all hear them speaking in their own native language. And how is it that we each hear them in our own language to which we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, and Pamphylia, Egypt, and the districts of Libya around Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes, Cretans, Arabs. We hear them in our own tongue speaking of the almighty deeds of God. And of course, you can see that sometimes people say, oh, but we don't have account of where this happened. We know these things has happened because there are evidence of it. And it's not the first time that these things has happened. Even at the time that crisis happened, if you remember, familiar with Prophet Daniel, and you remember the story that was said, if you go to the book of Daniel, and you can read that too, start from Daniel 2, you will see. Well, the dream that he had, it was written in a language and nobody could read it, and they called Daniel to come and interpret. Daniel doesn't speak the language, but he came and could be able to understand it and was able to speak it and translated it for them. So the gift of the Holy Spirit can give a gift for you to speak in a different tongue and a different language. He identified the language, called the language that no other person knew about or understood, and read it in that language and explained it. How did Daniel knew these things? He wasn't speaking and wasn't from there or born of there or any knowledge of it at the time. But he said, okay, he prayed and the Holy Spirit now spoke through him. And then if you also go in the book of about speaking in tongues. So our church is not against speaking in tongues, but our church is against what was happening in Corinth at the time Paul wrote them the first letter, chapter 14. In his first letter, chapter 14. Let's go there. In his first Corinthians, chapter 14. In 1 Corinthians, chapter 14, pursue love, yet desire earnestly spiritual gift, but especially that you may prophesy. For one who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men, but to God, for no one understands, but in his spirit he speaks mysteries. But they like to use this particular verse to confuse people who are mocking God and committing blasphemy and blunder. That's what we are against, of people that learn. And I'm sure that some of you might have known somebody who learned it, practice at home, and whenever they pray and they start to talk gibberish and talk barbarish, whatever they're talking that don't make no meaning, not from the spirit, of their own, opening their mouth and closing it so that they come to take the credit and pretend they define themselves as if they speak in tongues. That was what the Corinthians were doing, because they were trying to outdo each other. And Paul wrote them and said, no, you cannot do that. It doesn't edify the church, but yourself, even those that speak in tongues in real, that are actually speaking in unknown tongues. So that's why in our church, when the people start to do that, we ask you to be quiet unless you want to be dumb. And then people get afraid. But the thing is that it is a gift that is actually identified and known. But no one prophesies, but one who prophesies speaks to men for edification and exhortation and consolation. One who speaks in a tongue edifies himself, but one who prophesies edifies the church. And that's 1 Corinthians chapter 14 from verse 1. Now I wish that you all spoke in tongues, but even more that you will prophesy. And greater is one who prophesies than one who speaks in tongues, unless he interprets, so that the church may receive edifying. But now, brethren, if I come to you speaking in tongues, that will I profit you unless I speak to you either by way of revelation or of knowledge or of prophecy or of teaching. From verse 11, if then I do not know the meaning of the language, I will be to the one who speaks a barbarian, and the one who speaks will be a barbarian to me. And if you don't know in the context of the time, at the time, barbarians, from where you see the word barbaric, are people, mostly people from Berber tribe, the Berber tribe. And you find that those that come from Berber tribe, they have not changed it today. Blood-thirsty people that are proud and arrogant in their ability to be able to overcome and dominate and destroy. Because to that person, you are speaking a language they don't know. And it terrifies them. So when you start, somebody now come and start speaking a language you don't understand, and they'll start to jump and scream as you see them, wouldn't you be afraid and wonder what they're saying, whether they're planning to kill you or do something, so you don't know what they are talking about? How will that serve to the good of the church, that they have come to hear this new message that they want to see if they can give their life to Christ? And they hear all people talking about things without interpretation. How does that minister to them? How does the Spirit of God bring them what they're asking for, what they're seeking? For if I pray in tongue and my spirit prays, I'm reading verse 14 now, but my mind is unfruitful. If you read verse 13, it talks about somebody to interpret. So when you want to speak in tongue in a church, that's why we say you interpret. It's unfruitful. For also, since you are zealous of spiritual gift, and I read verse 12, seek to abound for edification of the church. Therefore, let one who speaks in a tongue pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in a tongue, my spirit prays, but my mind is unfruitful. And if the outcome then, I will pray with the spirit, and I will pray with the mind also. I will sing with the spirit, and I will sing with the mind also. Otherwise, if you bless in the spirit only, how will one who fills the place of the ungifted say